Hey everybody, welcome to the El Pachuco Chronicles. This is our very first episode. And here we are with the founders of El Pachuco Zoot Suits. We got Phyllis and Ray.
My name is Phyllis Estrella. I'm one of the founders of El Pachuco. That started in 1978. And here's my husband. He started it with me. There was three of us to begin with to start this. It was my dad, Bert Duran, who is now in heaven, myself, and my husband. It was the three of us that started this.
I'm Ray Estrella Senior, Phyllis's husband, and helped her a little bit get El Pachuco started. But going to the beginning, I knew about Pachucos. I had been around Pachucos, though I was too young to wear one. My brother was a Pachuco, a Zoot Suiter. My cousins in Arizona. So I remember them dressing up and what was involved, the melena, the haircut, the style of haircut, but they called it a melena, where you had a big pompadour, your hair combed away to the back, the double-sole shoes with horseshoe taps on them, the exaggerated pants and coats. I remember all that. But anyway, we had heard about the play Zoot Suit, and we went to see it. We went to see it several times. One of the times, driving home, my wife said she wanted to buy a Zoot Suit for her then 14-year-old brother. So we said, yeah, okay, So we looked around for a Zoot Suit. Couldn't find one.
Where'd you look?
I went to, clothing stores. I did research. I went on the computer, went to the yellow pages, and then finally it dawned on me that if anybody had a Zoot Suit, it had to be Hollywood. So I started doing research, and I went back to the yellow pages, and I started calling. At that time, there was 3 or 4 places in Hollywood that rented clothing to the movie industry. And one of them was Western Costume in Hollywood. So I called them and I asked them if they had a Zoot Suit. And they passed me to about 3 different people, because the first people I talked to went, huh, what? So anyway, I finally found a person that knew about a Zoot Suit and said, yeah, we got one. Come on down. So I went to Hollywood, and I went to Western Costume, and some guy, it took him, I don't know, a couple hours to dig it out, but he came out with a bright pink Zoot Suit. And,
Do you remember how much it was?
How much?
Yeah, how much it cost?
Well, I think to rent it at that time, I don't know, $50, $60, it seemed like a lot of money.
So you rented it, you didn't buy it?
I know, I didn't buy it. They didn't sell it. I rented it. So I brought it home, and we all looked at it, and, we took pictures, and then at that time, we were working with Lowrider Magazine. Lowrider Magazine had just started. So we were working with Lowrider Magazine, and we had started selling chains. My father-in-law would make up Zoot Suit chains, and we'd sell them through Lowrider. And then we had the bright idea of selling hats. So I don't know how I had found out about this hat company in Oakland. And
Oakland or Stockton?
Oakland.
Oakland.
And the company was by the Oakland airport, but their factory was in Stockton. So anyway, we were doing car shows at that time. We were heavy into car shows with Lowrider. Wherever Lowrider went, we went. I mean, we would take off on a Friday night, drive half the night.
What was the main thing that we sold at the car shows?
Hats. We sold hats and a few chains, but all we sold was hats. At that time, all we had was hats. So you name it, mostly lowrider hats were the most popular, but we sold different types of hats. And the usual routine was close the shop on a Friday night, load up the trailer, and go wherever we're going to go. Sometimes we'd go to Phoenix, Arizona. We were always up in the Bay Area. But anyway, that's how we started. Then, by accident, my job, I was a banker. I was a loan officer at a bank. And one day, I met a guy. They introduced me to a guy that had come in to open an account. And the guy had a tailor shop. So I made it a point to go out to his tailor shop, which is in Santana. And I went to his tailor shop, and I noticed he had a sweatshop. He had about 5 or 6 guys in the back room, literally locked up and working like crazy. So we had been discussing among ourselves to bring out a zoot suit pants. Anyway, having been to the play a bunch of times, and as I said before, my wife wanted a zoot suit for her little brother. But we had no idea where to get one or nothing. And as I told you before, as I said the story before about going to Western Costume, in the meantime, we were trying to market whatever we could to our customers. So we had already started with hats, and then we decided, let's do a chain. So my father-in-law, who was a jeweler, came up with a chain. He handmade the chain, and we started selling it in Lowrider magazine. And somewhere along there, the idea came that, hey, let's come out with some zoot suit pants. We had no idea what was involved. We had no patterns. We had nothing. So it wasn't until I got that costume from Western Costume that we had a zoot suit, or anyway, something that resembled a zoot suit. And it was from there that we got the idea. And so when I got that suit, I had met the tailor who was making pants, and I took the pants to him and asked him to make us a pair, which he did. So we started making zoot suit pants, and we were advertising in Lowrider magazine. And I noticed that of all the pants we were getting, one pair seemed to be nicer than all the others. Though it just seemed to lay better, it looked nicer. So I made it a point to find out which one of the tailors was doing such a great job on the pants. And eventually, at first the guy that owned the shop wouldn't let me go to the back. But somehow I started going to the back and talking to the tailors, and I became friends with that one tailor that made the best pants out of all of them. And came to find out his name was Edmundo Galvan, and he was from Puebla. And he was a bona fide tailor. I mean, his dad had been a tailor, his grandpa had been a tailor. So this guy was a pro. He knew everything about tailoring. So anyway, I became friends with him. And I told him...
So this guy let you be friends with him?
Well, I used to visit him, talk to him when the guy wasn't around. But I finally gained his confidence, and I told him, if you ever want to get away from here, let me know. And I gave him my address and my phone number. Anyway, a couple of months went by, and one Sunday afternoon we were home, and the phone rang, and my wife answered it, and it was Mr. Galvan, the tailor. And so I went to the phone and started talking to him, and he was scared out of his wits. He didn't know where he was. He had gotten away from the tailor shop, and he was scared to death.
How did he get away?
I don't know how he got away. I don't know how he walked out, but
I thought he had to go do, he said he was going to do some, wash his clothes.
The guy used to let him go to the laundromat to wash their clothes, and I'm pretty sure that's how he got away. But poor Mr. Galvan was scared. He had no money. All he had were a bag of wet clothes. And so anyway, I told him, tell me where you're at. He told me. I went and got him. And he was at a street corner, 17th and Grand in Santa Ana. So I went and got him and brought him home. We talked to him. I put him up in a motel for a couple nights.
How did we do this when we had no money?
I don't know. We did it.
We had a credit card.
So I put him up in a motel, and then within a couple of weeks or so, I found a little apartment in Anaheim, right on Olive Street, and it was like a little 2-bedroom, and I rented it. We rented it and put him in there, and eventually, he got started. And we got him everything he needed. We had another friend that we knew had a sweatshop. What was his name, Phyllis? The guy that had the business?
Salvador?
We had a friend named Salvador who had a business. He had machines and everything. So when we started, Mr. Galvan set him up. It was Salvador who helped us, sold us a couple of machines, real reasonable, and other equipment, and that's how we started, making the pants for ourselves. So eventually we had Mr. Galvan, I don't know where he found them, but at one time we had 6 tailors working and living.
I remember there being a lot of tailors back there.
There's about 5 or 6 tailors working and living in that 2-bedroom apartment. I don't remember how long that went on, but then eventually we found a place in Buena Park, and we bought it. And it was a little house, and they were able to work out of the house. But that's basically how the tailoring started. And again, as I said before, Mr. Galvan was such an experienced tailor. He's the one that made the initial patterns, because no patterns that we knew of existed for the zoot suit. Nobody. I mean, I went to Tijuana. I went to tailor shops. I had a neighbor who was a tailor from Belgium. He couldn't help me, but he helped me talk to tailors, and I even took him with me one time to Tijuana, looking for tailors, and couldn't find any. But again, we were lucky in that somehow we found Mr. Galvan, and Mr. Galvan wound up staying with us over 30 years till he passed. So through Mr. Galvan, we were able, because we now had patterns, we were able to start selling, custom-made zoot suits. When we first started out, we started out with the pants. We eventually wound up to a whole suit, where every suit that we had in the store was hand-tailored by Mr. Galvan. I think we're selling for $198. It was less than $200 at the time, and $198 for a 2-piece custom-made suit is unheard of. But in those days, it was a lot of money. But the process that we went through was literally undiscovered territory, because we had no idea where to get the suspenders. We had experience in hats because we already knew where to buy them. But whatever the zoot suit took, the shirt with a pointed collar, we didn't have it. We started out with just regular shirts. Eventually, we designed our own shirt. We wound up getting a supplier for the suspenders, and eventually brought in the shoes that went with the suit. But we literally had nothing but our imagination, and we had to find everything.
Well, I want to start at the beginning because I was not raised with anybody in my family being a Pachuco. I had never seen a Zoot Suit. When I was born in 1944, my dad was in the military. He was a paratrooper fighting the war, and I didn't meet him till I was almost 2. So I didn't know what a Pachuco was. The only thing I had heard was when the women would talk after they came back from a party, and they would talk about those Pachucos, how they dress different and how they comb their hair different. And they were a lot of fun, those guys, those Pachucos. And then when I was 5 years old and I went to school, I was sitting next to a little kid, and his name was Chucky. And I said, where'd you get a name like that? I never heard of a name like Chucky. I heard of Bill, John, Frank, but Chucky? Where'd you get that name? And he turned around and looked at me and he said, well, when I was born with a lot of hair. And my mother said, I look just like a Pachuco. And I said, I'll be darned, I wonder what a Pachuco is. So that's what started my interest in the Zoot Suit. Because there was not one at my house. We didn't have Pachucos in my house. Everybody was in the military. And my grandmother never even allowed any beer or drinking in the house or smoking. It was a straight house. So our upbringing was completely different. So I was always curious about the Zoot Suit. So years later, after I got married, back in 1978, my husband and I were driving down a street in Los Angeles. I remember I saw a billboard, and it had Zoot Suit on there. I said, Ray, look at, there's a Pachuco standing there in that billboard, and he's got a Zoot Suit on. And I just got so excited. They're going to make this play called Zoot Suit. Oh, we have to go see it. So we bought the tickets, and we couldn't wait. It was a countdown to see the play. And I went to see it, and I was so excited. I remember my heart was pounding. And we sat in the seat, and everybody in there was Latino. And then finally the curtains opened, and the play started. I just can't explain how excited I was. That's the first time I saw the Zoot Suit. I was familiar with the music, because we always had music at our house. When the grandma was making the tortillas in the morning, we always had music. 5 o'clock in the morning, the music started with the pounding of that palote. So I saw the play, and it brought so many memories, because the play, it started with the mother making the tortillas, the dad working very hard with his lunch pail, and the kids wanting to go out and dance in their Zoot Suit. And I just fell in love with the Zoot Suit. And I thought, why aren't there any Zoot Suits available now? How come they're not in the stores? How come nobody's wearing them? And this was in 1939, 1940, when I think this play took place, I think. And here I was in 1978, and I had never seen a Zoot Suit. So that's what sparked my interest in the Zoot Suit. That's how it all started. So it started with the play, and we liked it so much. I remember we went back like 4 or 5 times to see it. I had to take my mom and dad to see it, had to take my comadre Dolores and Arnie to see it, had to take my kids to see it. By the time I took everybody to see it, I was really excited with the Zoot Suit. And I remember walking out of the play one of those days and thinking, I have to be involved in this somehow. I'm not a dancer like they are on the stage there. I'm not an actor. What am I going to do? I'm not a musician. I know. I'd love to have a Zoot Suit. And I would love to have one for my little brother, my brother David, because he was such a good dancer and he had such a wonderful personality. And I thought, boy, if I could put him in this Zoot Suit, he'd be the star of the party. He could have so much fun. So that's what really encouraged me to continue. Fun. My brother would have fun. So I went out and tried to buy one. I went to the stores. I went to the tailor shops, L.A. County, Orange County, Tijuana. We went everywhere. And everybody would say, what? You want a Zoot Suit? What do you want that for? And they would try and convince me to buy something else. Well, I knew what I wanted. You're not going to convince me to change my mind. I knew what I wanted. So I thought, I'm sure there's other people out in this world that want a zoot suit just as bad as I do. And they're not available, so this would be a good market for me to get into. Because at that time, we had a jewelry store that was not doing very well, but we didn't know too much about business because that jewelry store was our first one, and that was all my dad's idea, and we wanted to support him and help him get it, but we didn't know too much about it. And at that time is when downtown LA, all the jewelers were opening their stores to the public. So what did they need to come to see me for and buy retail when they could go to LA and buy wholesale? So I was not doing well there. So when we saw this, I thought, boy, this would be good. But that was just my opinion. That's what sparked me into jumping into this. I didn't know where to start. No idea. So one day my husband walks in the door with this pink zoot suit that he rented out in Hollywood. And I think it was that same pink zoot suit that was in the play, because I remember seeing them dancing in the play, and there was a zoot suit, a pink zoot suit there that somebody was wearing. I think it was the same one. So we looked at that and we took the specs off of it and got an idea of what we wanted to do. And then I did some research and looked into Cab Calloway's zoot suit. It was similar, not the same. So we fixed it to look like Cab Calloway's zoot suit, which is the one I liked. And that's really how it started. I wanted one for my brother, and I thought, if I want this, and people love to have fun, because no matter what happens, we got to have fun. This zoot suit would bring nothing but fun and happiness to people. And that's the kind of work I wanted to get into. I didn't want to get into some work where I have to give you bad news about anything. No, this was going to be fun.
And it's weird how you say that, because to this day, you're still doing that. You're still creating.
Yes,
memories.
yes.
You're still,
And I would ask my family or friends, I'm thinking of doing this, of making the zoot suit and adding this to my store. And they say, are you crazy? You really think you're going to pay the rent by selling a zoot suit? Who would want a zoot suit? Nothing but gangsters. And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not a gangster and I want one. So I think it was the love of the zoot suit that drove me to do all this. So to make a long story short, my husband searched and searched for a tailor. We found one that we liked and we felt we could trust. And he was a good man, a very honest, good man. And he helped us a lot. And that's how we got started. So once we found the tailor to make the suit of my dreams, then we put the ad into Lowrider magazine. And when the ad went out, immediately people started coming to me. I couldn't believe the excitement. They would run in the store, and first they'd tell me, do you really have a zoot suit? Because, they weren't around. Nobody had one. I said, I really do have one. And then I would dress them up, and they couldn't believe it. So the word got around, and well, that came later, yes. So the word got out, and I thought, how am I going to advertise this? I could have the best product in my hand here, but how's the world going to know that I have it? To begin with, I'm going to need some artwork. And that's when I put the word out in the neighborhood. I am looking for an artist to draw me a zoot suit. So different people brought in different art and their ideas of what a Pachuco looked like. And then one day, this young man came in. He came in when I wasn't there, and he was talking to my dad, and he told me he was an artist and that he could draw them. I said, really? So we made an appointment, and he came another time, and he brought me his artwork. Oh, my God, I couldn't believe it. His artwork stood out so good compared to everything else I had seen. I said, this is the one for me. Plus, he was a nice guy, easy to talk to, honest, good-looking, young. And I thought, no, this is a guy. So we started working together. That's how Julian and I got started. And then he started doing artwork for me. And so I had the art, and I thought I still need to see how I'm going to get this out there. So I could not afford to advertise in the newspaper because it was expensive and I didn't have the money. So here comes my little brother David. I said, let's do a dance company. I said, I'll dress you. You get a few friends out there that love to dance, and I'll buy a flashy car. So I went out and bought a black limo. But I wanted to go wherever we were going to go in class. And I wanted to open that car door and have these Pachucos walk out. I wanted to give them some class that a lot of people thought we were just gangsters, but we're not gangsters. We're honest, hardworking people. So that's what we did. That's how the El Pachuco Dance Company got started. And that's another story of the El Pachuco Dance Company. So we started going to different high schools and doing no.
We did a whole program where I would come at that time. At that time, I had a 48 fleet line. I would come and I'd bring my fleet line, and then being a banker, I'd come dressed in a suit, coat and tie, and then I'd give a talk to the kids about Pachucos, history of Pachucos and all that. And I would start my talk by saying, introducing myself and telling them what I did. And then I would say to them, "Do you know what a Pachuco is?" And
I think
young
this was
kids.
before that. And right now in the Peterson Museum, they have the first pictures of the Lowrider magazine on the walls there for the display they're doing right now. And you'll see our ads in those pictures of the first Lowrider magazines. Yes, we took pictures of them. We'll post them on our website along with this presentation that we're doing right now on this Chronicles.
You need to get on the microphone and say this.
Yes, but you'll see. Okay, so just to reiterate what she was saying right now, that she got the. Oh, this is Ray Estrella Jr.
A little closer, Mike Ray.
This is Ray Estrella Jr. I'm just filling in pieces and parts of the puzzle here. That when we a few months ago we went to go to the Peterson Museum because they have a display called the Best in Low, and these are all the best, some of the best lowriders from the world there. And you can see the very beginnings of Lowrider magazine and the actual first lowriders, and you see our ads in those pictures. And we'll post them up so that you can see them because we took a lot of pictures of them. But you see all our ads from the very beginning with Lowrider magazine.
What is the Peterson Museum?
The Peterson Museum is more like a car museum exhibit where all the famous cars are at from all over the world.
Where is this museum located?
In LA, off of, it's in
It's on Wilshire.
It's on Wilshire over there. And
so the Peterson is a world famous car museum.
yes, yes.
But as I mentioned before, this is Ray Senior. As I mentioned before, we started roughly the same time Lowrider magazine started. So we put the first ever ad in Lowrider magazine for our Zoot Suit. And like I say, we go back to the very beginning when they started and we started. So we worked very closely with them. And in fact, the first ad was handwritten, hand painted. But anyway, as my son mentioned, I'm glad to hear that there's still copies of that at Peterson Museum.
Okay, if I can get back to how I was going to advertise this suit. The dance company, yes, the dance company, we would go to, I got my brother David in charge of these, maybe I had 4 or 5 couples dancing, and we would go to these different high schools, and the schools would give me a period, a whole period, they had a name for it, and we would give the history of rock and roll or something. We'd rock into the 50s, stroll into the 60s, and I forget what we did in the 70s. We would do a little history of dancing, and they were all in zoot suits. And we would end up to where we were at that time, which was the early 80s. And that's where my zoot suits would come in. But the zoot suit would play the whole program. And that became such a success, and the kids liked it, and they'd get back in their flashy car and drive off. And a lot of times the students wouldn't let them leave the driveway. They were like celebrities. So once one of my dancers, which was the youngest one, David Escalera, I had to sacrifice his hat. He got his hat and he threw it in the parking lot. Well, all the kids ran after the hat in the parking lot. It was that way my limousine was able to get out of there. So it was a success. And then all the schools knew about me. And the customers started pouring in. They'd come in. I did not have to do a selling job. They came in and they wanted a zoot suit, and I had it. It was the easiest sale I ever made, because at that time the parents didn't want anything to do with the zoot suit. It was derogatory. The kids, it had a bad rep. And anyway, where was I with this? So that told me that this was going to be okay. I was going to be able to sell these zoot suits. So at that time, my landlord, but I was in a mall with a big jewelry store that wasn't making any money, and I had separated a little room there for my zoot suits. At that time, my landlord came by, and he saw what I was doing there, and he doubled my rent. Well, I couldn't afford that. So I told my dad, we can't afford this rent. We got to get out of here now. I think we're going to close down. This didn't work. And he said, oh, no. He said, we have to continue with this. So I don't know. Really, we didn't know what we were going to do. So one day on the way home, he passed by our store, which is our store now, and he said, Phyllis, there's a store there in the corner, and it's for sale.
It was a bar, restaurant.
It was a building. It was a building at that time, yes.
On the Harbor Street.
Yes, this is where we are now. And
What year was this about?
this was in 1978. And
Are you talking about Harbor?
yes, no, I'm talking about Harbor.
Harbor was 84.
No, that was 84.
84.
84. 78.
Okay, you're right. 78 is when I went to see the play. You're right. You're absolutely right. So this was about 83, 84.
So you've been at it a good 5 years at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. And then your landlord said, hey,
Yeah, we're going to double
give
the
me-
rent on you.
give me a piece of that.
And I thought, no, we can't do this. So I told my dad, after we went to, I said, Dad, we can't afford this building. We don't have the money for this. We're going to qualify. How are we going to make the payments? It needs work. How are we going to fix it? How am I going to stock it? Who's going to run it? We can't do this. And he said, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Your husband works at the bank. He knows how to get the money to do it. And you know how to run the store. So, yes, you can. And he said, and I have to have somewhere to go to work every day. I said, well, I didn't know what to do. I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, if you don't do this, I'm going to get on a bicycle and pick up bottles every day. Well, that woke me up. I thought, I can't let you do this. I can't let you be on a bicycle picking up bottles. Okay. So my husband went to the bank, and he did some miracles there. To this day, I don't know how he convinced them to give us a loan. That's another story there. Because this is,
We have all the time in the world.
well,
That's another.
that's another chronicle right there. We did get the building, and then I had that old building that needed new plumbing, new electrical, new walls, had to come up to code, new sidewalks. What did I get myself into?
Had to get another loan.
So that's another story there. Luckily, I'm going to jump a few hoops there. And then my brother, Reuben, was a carpenter. So I looked at Reuben and I said, what do I do? Here I have this store. It needs all this work. So he jumped aboard and helped me. He put my store together. He fixed the front. He called the shots. He didn't do all the work. He did the carpentry, but he called all the shots. So he watched my back. It was a family affair from the beginning. And back then, I was so naive. I thought, I'll just have friends fix my store. But it didn't work out that way. Everybody that came wanted to get paid. And here I thought I could barter or do something else. So that was another awakening there. So I don't know how we did it, but we did because we had no money. So I had to refinance my house, drain all my credit cards, and it took me a couple of years to fix the store, to make it where the city would give me a permit to open it. And I remember we were all done with the store, and then we went to the city and we said, we're ready. They said, no, you're not. You need to do a parking lot. You have to have a safe parking lot fixed up. Landscaped and blacktop. And oh my God, we didn't have a dime left. I had to ask a friend.
So you spent 2 years fixing up the store, and the city said, "Oh, don't forget your parking."
Yeah,
Like it
that's
was no
how
big,
little we knew.
like it was no big deal.
Yeah, and then
So-
no, it was even more than that. They told us what plants to plant. And I remember one time I got a phone call from the whatever in charge of whatever department oversees that, and his words to me were, "You have to repaint your building. It looks like a circus." And I go, "What?" I said, "The city approved the color scheme. I went to the city. I showed you the colors. You picked them." Well, he was very rude, and he says, "No, your place looks like a circus. Repaint it."
Right, it sounds like they just
Well,
didn't want you guys to open the store.
Honestly, I don't think they wanted us. They're not going to say that, of course. But it was always, we'd meet one hurdle, and then another one would pop up, another obstacle. And luckily, because I was a loan officer, I knew what to say and what to do when it came to a loan application. And we wound up getting a loan from a bank, I'll never forget it, out of Seattle, Washington, of all places. Long distance, I communicated with a loan officer, and I was able to get a loan to cover the remodeling of the building and then later add to it, because the surprise the city gave us added $27,000 to the bill that we didn't have. Their additional requirements added $27,000 to the bill. So anyway, we were able to, grace of God, pull it off. We got the money, and we finally got. See, they hold something over you. It's called an occupancy permit. Without that permit, that building could sit there empty for forever. And they would not give us an occupancy permit. They had this long list and check it off, and every check cost money. And I would go to meetings, and they'd have these so-called businessmen from the downtown area that oversaw and commented on your building. And they were advisors to the city, some sort of a committee, and everything they recommended was costing me money. But long story short, we got over it, got it done.
Yeah, that's part of the red tape we had to go through. That's the term my mom always would use, red tape. There was a lot of red tape, especially when you're working with the city. That's one thing I don't think I'll ever do again. That was hard. Anyway, here I was ready to open, but we needed that parking lot. So I didn't know what to do. We didn't have one more dollar. Luckily, somebody lent me, a cousin of mine that had some money. I was even too embarrassed to go ask her. I sent my husband to go ask her. He asked my cousin Dolores to lend us $10,000. That was a lot of money. I mean, who's going to lend you $10,000? She did. She did.
Now, you didn't even open in the front. You were in the back because you couldn't afford the rent.
Right. So here we had this building. I could not even make the mortgage payment, so I was looking for a tenant in the front to take the majority of the stores so they could help me pay the mortgage. We got lucky. We found a nice man who had a...
He found us.
Yeah, he found
us.
us. He came in. He says, I really like your location. I would like to put a sandwich shop here. And we thought, great. So he did. He put his store there, and he helped me a lot because he had put stores together before. So really, he was a godsend. He really was. He helped us a lot. And he was there for about, I forget how long. How
10
was
years.
he there?
10
How long?
years. 10
8?
years.
Oh, 10 years? Well, maybe 10 years. I don't remember now. And then his wife got tired of working, and one day he called me and he said, "This is it. I'm going to give you back the keys. I'm not going to work there anymore." So here I had to pay all the mortgage now.
I want to interrupt because I want to hear Ray's take on how much he misses those sandwiches.
Well, they weren't regular. They
weren't.
weren't regular sandwiches. They were like submarine. They were like submarine sandwiches. So I didn't really like them.
Oh, you didn't.
But
you did.
He would make me a special sandwich all the time. He would make me an egg and bacon sandwich and the submarine bread. The bread, I remember the bread was always really good. So he would make me a special sandwich, and then he would make me one with a hamburger in it, with hamburger patties and the submarine. So yes, thank you, Phil. His name was Phil. So thank you, Phil, for always looking out for me. But he wasn't there, and then we rented it out to our cousin, to my Uncle Ruben. He had a little restaurant for a couple years. And then we finally decided to make the jump to make El Pachuco the whole store.
Yes, so that's...
So was this in the 90s then that the front became the...
Yes, around 95.
In the 90s, we were
Yeah,
in the front.
middle of the 90s.
We were able to occupy the front of our own store in the 90s.
Yes, but it was a slow transition.
Yeah, very
Because
slow.
We were still
Very
it still looked like a restaurant.
Yes.
So Bertie would sit there right
Uh-huh.
where the stove was, and we would sell a suit, and we would bring out little mannequins.
Yes,
and
yes.
we still had the black and white floor.
Yes,
and
checkered, yes.
My mom would set up a camera so we'd take pictures of them dressed up, and they would come from the back to the front to take a picture.
Phil and Carms was the name of the submarine shop. They were in front.
So it's always been a family thing. You know, my dad encouraging us to get the building, to continue, because I was ready to throw the hat in. And then once I jumped into it, then it was my brother that came and helped me put it together. And Lucy was always by my side, helping with whatever we did. Gloria also, she was always helping. And my brother was there, my little brother David, the one I wanted the suit for, was dancing. Lucy is Lucy's fashion jewelry now today. And that's where she got her start, because we had a jewelry store back in the 70s.
So how did your brother react when you finally got him his suit? And how did that feel?
My brother?
Yeah, remember
we'll
that was the
have
whole
to interview
inspiration.
him.
Remember you were inspired to get him the suit, and
Yeah.
how did that make you feel when you finally were able to hand him that suit or get him?
Well, it made me feel really good, and I really think it did everything to him that I thought it would. We will have to have him talk to you about that. That's another story. Yes, he can share the story of what the Zoot Suit did for him.
And I should probably introduce myself. My name is Jim Ruel, and I work at the store. And Ray Jr. and I have been friends for a long time. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I'm Ojibwe tribe, which is back there. So a lot of this is very, very new to me. I went to college at Stanford, and every year, and my freshman year, I stayed at the Mexican America theme dorm, which had have half of the residents would be like Latino or Mexican American, and then the rest would be everybody. But they had a Native American theme dorm, but it was not. They didn't allow freshmen in it, or they only allowed upperclassmen. So they would have some of the Native American freshmen stay in Casa Zapata, the Latino theme dorm. So I was there, and a few other Native Americans were there, and every year they would have the Zoot Suit dance in February, and they would have just talks about the professor come and talk about the Zoot Suit riots and a little bit about the history of that, and then they had a dance, the Zoot Suit dance, and this was a big. They had the band, Dr. Loco and his Rockin' Jalapeno band. And yeah, some of the guys would get dressed up in the Zoot Suits. I didn't even know that they were doing that. I just knew they were dressed in nice suits, and they would have a dance contest. And I guess I don't know if you guys had a connection there. What was your connection to the? Did you guys have come up for that or?
No, well, we heard about them because I think we supplied the suits to them, and I thought, gee, I wish I could go down there and hear that band and see the song. Well, you went later, but at the very beginning when they first started.
And Dr. Loco was actually a teacher.
Yes,
They were all teachers. They were all
Yeah,
doctors.
he was a professor at San Francisco State.
They were all PhDs.
So I said, see, we're not all bad guys. We have some good ones in the crowd. So when I opened my store in the front, when I was finally able to occupy my whole building there, the kids would run in with their parents because the kids didn't have any money, and they say, Mom, I want this Zoot Suit. I want you to buy me one. Or they wanted to rent one for prom, and the parents would come in with their long faces and say, what do you want this for? Oh, absolutely not. They would not let them have the suit. And the kid would say, but Mom, it's my money. I work for it. This is my money. I want this suit. So after a few hours and then a lot of begging from the kids, the parents would finally let them have it. So it was not easy. And a lot of the schools didn't want the Zoot Suits the kids coming to the prom.
Disneyland
Zoot
wouldn't let
Suits.
him in at first.
Oh no, not Disneyland, because see, Disneyland has a lot of characters, and I can understand where they came from. They didn't want people to think that they were part of Disneyland, that they were a part of their character. They didn't want any part of the Zoot Suit there, so they banned the Zoot Suit from going into Disneyland. Yes, so, but I can understand that. So we had a hard time the first 5 years breaking in because the parents didn't want it, the schools didn't want it. Things changed like everything else. Times changed because back then we didn't have a cell phone, we didn't have a computer, we didn't have any social media. Our hours were long. We worked. My dad was there at work early. Well, my dad was a workhorse. He was always working. He always worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. So he was the first one to open the store. When I'd get there, he already mopped the store, got everything ready. Everything was nice and clean, and he was there sitting at his desk in his white shirt, ready to work. I think our hours back then were 10 to 6, 8 whole hours.
He would leave around 2:30 day.
No, that was later when he got a little older. Later, so we had more hours, and we'd sit there and hope we'd get a customer. And I thought, jeepers, here we got this building. I'm in debt over my head, and I sat there one day and I told my dad, "Gosh, Dad, what if this thing doesn't make it? We have a lot. I have a big investment in here. We all do. My brother helped me, him, the whole family. We were all into it. It was just not me. I just had the financial part of it." He said, "Daughter, give everybody the red carpet. Anybody who walks in here, you treat everybody the same. You treat them good. You be honest." He said, "If there's a discrepancy and there's a loss of money, you take the loss. You never let anybody walk out of here saying that you mistreated them or you cheated them. Just treat people right. And the first thing you do is you become friends with them. Be friendly, make them your friend. Once they're your friend, it's easy street." So that's what my dad told me, and that's what we did. That's exactly what we did, and that's how we got started.
But besides the long hours, we would do car shows. We would go swap meets. So it wasn't just the store. Some of the car shows that I said before on Friday night, I would close the bank at 6, go rent a trailer, a U-Haul, come back to the shop, load it up, and we take off. We drive sometimes half the night. So it was more than just the store. We were doing car shows. We were doing talks at the schools. We had the El Pachuco Dance Company. So we were doing whatever it took. Whatever it took.
Now, did you ever have like folks from the older generation that were maybe some of the original Zoot Suiters from the 40s?
At the very
or
beginning,
did they ever come into the store and
yeah,
just be
at
like,
the
wow,
very
this
beginning,
is really something?
at the very beginning, we would have. I remember specifically this one group of men that had all retired from Kaiser Steel in Fontana, and they lived out in that area. And they would come in on Saturdays. They'd visit with my father-in-law, and you know, I wouldn't be too much involved because they were older men, but they were very nice, and a lot of them would give us tips. They'd tell us about the clothing. They would have suggestions, but we had older men, and then I guess they died or something. They quit coming around, but they were the only ones that I remember that wore the zoot suit. And then we would have guys come in or people come in who came in because their grandfather wore a zoot suit. We always had stories like that of people.
We still do.
Yeah, and we still do to this day.
Yeah, I think that's some of my
But,
favorites, just when they're honoring their parents.
As my wife said, it's a business where we've made a lot of friends. Everything is always on a friendly. I don't recall ever having any sort of a disagreement or somebody stomping out or leaving mad. It's always been very pleasant. People are very pleasant, and as my wife says, we treat everybody, the best that we can. Never had a conflict that I can recall. Never.
The best part of the whole thing is all the friends that we've made. We've made friends all over the United States and different countries. Really, it's all the friendships we made, because I remember being a little girl, my mom would always say, friends are better than money. And I thought, how in the heck could friends be better than money? Because we had none. I understand what you meant now.
You had
As
no
you get
money or
old-
you had no friends? No, just kidding.
You know, as you get older, you realize why your parents told you things. You realize why they said the things they did. Now I understand my mom. Friends are better than money. We are a little better off. We all worked hard and our family grew. Everybody's in the business now. My daughter Linda, she takes care of all the taxes and the paperwork and all the headaches of it. Because if I had to do the taxes, I guarantee you we would not have a business. I hate doing paperwork, taxes. That's why I never went to school. I don't like paperwork or looking at books, or that's not me. That's another story. I'm not telling the kids don't go to school. Go to school if you like it. But I didn't like school. I did well. The reason I had to do well, because my dad said if I didn't pass, I couldn't go to the dance. So I wanted to go to the dance. I wanted to go hear the music and dance with my friends. So it's really the only reason I passed. But I did not like school. School was not for me. So I wanted to go out and work and make some money. And that's what I did. Anyway, back to my friends. I have a lot of friends, and I'm very happy with them, and I'm still making friends every day. I'm 80 years old now, and I can't wait to get up and go to work and make more friends and meet more people and talk about zoot suits and design another suit. And luckily, I have my family to back me up. I mentioned Linda, who does the paperwork. And then I have my son Ray, who came on when he got out of high school, so he learned the business, and then he went to college and met this lovely girl named Vanessa. And Vanessa started working at the store with us, and that's how we met her. So we're going to pass the torch on to the second generation, because it's time for me to take a break. So you're in good hands.
All right, I want to thank everyone who's tuning in to listen to this, and hope you enjoyed hearing some of the early stories of El Pachuco and the family, and just a great. For me, I haven't really heard. I've heard some of these stories, but not as much detail. So I really like hearing about this. True LA and Orange County stories.
Rock that boat! All right.